Hello everyone, this is Money Mom. Welcome to the channel. As you can see, I'm outside. If you hear noise, cars and things, nothing I can do about it, but I did want to talk to you guys about something today. I wanted to tell you guys the real reasons I don't drive. Many of you know I don't drive. Those of you that have been with me, I've been on YouTube over 5 years, but there are several reasons for that. I get many of you that have encouraged me to drive, totally understand why. It would give me more independence. I will say this. I did drive when I was back in Minnesota. I was born in Minneapolis. I grew up in a suburb of St. Paul called Woodbury. Then my dad wanted to live out in the country, and many of the people, when the moms started going back to work, except for my mother, they started moving to different subdivisions in Woodbury, Minnesota. Our family moved to Stillwater, Minnesota. That's where I actually graduated high school. And we lived out in the country. We had 2.5 acres. My dad loved it. Mom did not like it. Then we ended up moving back to Woodbury. But for those 4 years is when I learned how to drive. Well, when we lived out in Stillwater, Minnesota, guess what? I didn't have to deal with any traffic at all. So I learned how to drive and I had the skill for driving, but I never dealt with any traffic living in Stillwater because I would go see a friend, and the friend I saw also lived out in the country. So I was always on country roads and I barely ever even saw a car. So let me just say that first. So that's when I started out. Then I went to University of Wisconsin, River Falls. I didn't need a car at college, and when I went to college, we would walk everywhere. Here comes the cars, speaking of cars, so I apologize, but hey, people are coming home from work. Anyway, so I didn't need a car there anyway. So then I graduated from college in '87. I had an internship, so I moved to Dallas, Texas in 1988. I think I was making, back in 1988, I was making $10 an hour as a teacher at a private school, which, you know, it's scary that there's still some jobs out there that pay 10 an hour, but that's another topic. Anyway, so I moved to Dallas. There was no reason for me to get a car. I wouldn't have been able to afford a car payment with everything else, or just a vehicle, and I hadn't driven in so many years. So basically, number one reason, I got out of the habit of driving. Number two, when I drove out in the country. And also, I did drive once in the city. I wasn't by myself. One time, not in Stillwater, it was in the Twin Cities. And I'm not ready to talk about it ever. I actually never even shared this with my husband. I had a traumatic experience, not a car accident, while I was driving. And that may have kind of scared me away from driving. I can actually drive if we moved to live out in the country. So let's say that I was going to move to a small town, I would have no problem driving. It's mostly the traffic that is really nerve-wracking. There's a lot of accidents here, and the traffic in Dallas and the suburbs of Dallas, I'm not even joking, have really increased. You used to be able to go out and drive and you'd have pockets of time where there was no traffic. And I would say that was between the hours of, say, 9 and maybe 11:30 a.m. And then you might have a time in the afternoon before the school rush, things like that. Every time you go out now, basically, many of the streets look like a parking lot. I'm not even kidding you. And so it's very nerve-wracking to me. Am I ever going to drive? I'm not sure, but my main reasons is I just got out of the habit of it, and I never learned to drive in the city. If you're going to learn to drive and you grow up and you live out in the country, yeah, you know how to drive, but driving when you live with no traffic and you go from one small area to something that's heavily trafficked, you actually need, my opinion, different training on how to deal with those situations. And if you struggle with anxiety like me, it may not be a good fit. Will I ever drive? I kind of say I would like to, but am I saying it because I want to do it, or am I saying it because I think everyone else thinks I should? I have to answer that question for myself. The other thing is this, is I need to also tell myself, it's okay if I don't drive. What would be the worst situation? We have Uber, okay? I've actually taken Uber. It's been a wonderful experience. I could do that. But before I drive, the one thing I do know is that I really feel like I need to talk to some professionals about it, what my fears are, and see if I can work through some of those things before I get behind the wheel, because I care about the safety of myself and others around me. So that's what I'm going to leave you with. Basically, the main reason I don't drive is extreme fear and anxiety over the situation. And I think before I even drive, I really need to work through some things and process through some things. And if there's things right now that you feel like people are telling you you ought to do, whether it's drive, it doesn't matter what it is, and you just feel too fearful about it, you know what? You don't have to listen to what other people tell you. Maybe there's some areas that you need to work on yourself and things you need to process through in anything, because we all have fears. So if there's something you're scared of right now or fearful of, it's okay. There's no timetable that you have to deal with it this second. And when you're ready to handle it or deal with it, you will find out a way that works for you. For me, I'm actually going to talk to someone about it and just see if we can find out what are the real reasons, what are the root reasons. Are there some areas that we can work on where I'm not so fearful, where I can possibly maybe one day drive in traffic and feel confident about my ability. You know, I've heard a lot of people say this though, it's not myself that I worry about, it's everyone else around me. So I'm not sure yet when I'm going to drive. I get several people that ask me. Whenever I do drive, you guys will be the first to know, and I'm going to leave you with that. That's all I have to say for now. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to this video, and I sure would love if you would subscribe and tell other people about this channel if you find value in it. I love you very much. See you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.